I just recently got back from Las Vegas where I competed in the Season 1 Major Regional with Void Jin. Let's talk about my performance in the tournament, how Vegas was as a whole, and then I'll finish off by recapping the Season 1 meta. How did my top 50 characters coming into this season actually fare? And let's talk about the current state of the game and where things are going to go from here. How did Yu Yu Hakusho fundamentally change the game as we know it? Starting off in chronological order, let's talk about team preparation beforehand. This is one of the first events where I actually had a team behind me and a team dedicated to consistent testing and consistent deck building amongst one another. That's me in the middle. That's my brother Patrick. This is Ross, Grayson, TC. Over on this side, we have George, Carson, and Christos, and James. Not pictured is Pippa, who had already gone back to her hotel room after Swiss rounds had ended. But every Tuesday night, we have been testing from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. We've been constantly talking amongst each other in the Discord. I've been playing the game so much that I've been making a lot less content lately, just because every night there's a team member who wants to do some testing. I thought about streaming some of the team games, but a few of the team members didn't want me streaming and showing off everybody's deck builds, so decided against that. It was pretty hard, like keeping a lid on George's and TC's button collector younger builds where they play Falling Heel Strike to unflip button collector. We had quite a bit of our team members on younger. George was on younger, TC was on younger, Christos was on younger. We had Ryan on younger as well, but Ryan's flight got canceled right before he could come to Vegas. He was in the airport and then it got delayed and then his flight got canceled and he couldn't make it out. But each of the team members that was on younger was running a really, really unique build of younger. We saw George's on stream where he was doing this button collector build to 1,000,000. One of the cool things that George did was took out Battle Aura release. There was a lot of conversations that we had amongst each other about how Younger could overcome the Amajiki matchup. It was George ultimately went with Gory Stab, which was interesting. I was thinking about like maneuvering laser, but I think Gory Stab was definitely the right decision since Amajiki has no choice but to block the attack. TC was on this younger build where you were playing dual needle lunge and then ambush thrust to pick back up your attack, and you were just never playing on progressive, and it was also using some echoes. Christos was on this Fury build where you're using like Irate Scowl, Stun Grenade, Howitzer, Impact Cyclone. It was very, very similar to his Death Ochako deck, but now that Ochako's rotated, Younger runs the deck pretty well, as it turns out. So that was our team preparation. Grayson was on Muscular, Ross was on Bowie, Patrick was on Air Mirio, Carson was on Jiro 2, playing a 100+ card deck as normal, and James was with me on Void Jin. He actually ended up finishing better than me. I got 22nd, but James ended up getting top 16 with Void Jin, was on a win-and-in match in his last round, and then not pictured as Pippa, who played with Ball Might. So pretty good representation amongst the team. It was an absolute blast to go to Vegas with them and to feel like, you know, you're battling next to teammates and you've got people helping you on your deck building decisions, giving you quality advice whenever you're testing. So really, really appreciated all of them. I thought we put together a really solid team and had a good event. That was our preparation. Me personally, I was between Void Jin and Chaos Amajiki for the event. I think Chaos Amajiki was a little bit stronger, but I wanted to prove that Jin was a top 5 character in the game. Because as soon as this character was revealed, I was all over Jin. At the day that he was revealed, I said he was the best character in the game. He hasn't done much competitively. We had a top 8 in the Wish tournament, but that's really been it. We haven't seen anything from these major regionals from Jin. I still think that this is a top 5 character in the game, and I wanted to prove it. So I ultimately went with Void Jin. I put a lot more practice into him. Amajiki didn't feel terribly hard to pilot because it was very, very similar to Chaos Mirio, and I had taken him to a local qualifier and done quite well. So Amajiki felt like the easier pick between the two, but I felt like I had something to prove with Jin, so I went with Jin. And this was the list that I ended up taking. It was a 75 card list. Void, I've already done a video deck profile on it. I'm sure that I made a few changes here compared to the deck profile video, but there weren't that many changes. The biggest change I would say was like putting red counter in the sideboard. I was maining boarding this card for just a little bit. Ultimately decided to put it in the side, but it's really, really strong against like Armor of the Wolf to remove it and say the damage can't be modified. It's also very strong against Younger, because against Younger, the issue is not the speed of his attacks and not being able to block his attacks. You can block everything, especially as Jin, when you're giving -2 or -3 speed to all of his attacks. The issue is just having cards in hand for it. And while my deck does have a lot of defensive draw, it's nice that red counter basically is a double block. You know, if you can remove it and keep Battle Aura Release at 4 damage, instead of it getting up to like 12, 14, 15 damage, then that's a big win. So the red counters went in the sideboard. Thursday, flew in. We stayed at Harrah's, or like I mispronounced it the entire trip, Harrah's. It was on the monorail system to get to the convention center. So in my mind, it was going to be a very, very short ride to the convention center. We were going to save money on Uber trips. Also, it was right on the strip, and I was flying in with my wife, Shayla, and Patrick was also staying at Harrah's with us with his girlfriend. And so it was going to be nice to be right on the strip and next to tons of places to eat and tons of shows to go to, tons of things to do. Friday, my brother didn't get in until Friday night. My wife and I were just going to go to the convention center together to have a good time. My wife was going to cosplay Charlie, I think, from the show Hazbin Hotel. I'm not a big fan of Hazbin Hotel, but my wife is. I have to admit the songs are good. I'm just not quite into like the way they talk, or I don't know what it is. I just like, I'm okay with some cuss words and some raunchy scenes, but I just don't like feeling gross when I watch something. For some reason, with Hazbin Hotel, I was just kind of feeling gross. So I'm not a big fan of it, but my wife is. And judging from how many people were cosplaying Hazbin Hotel, a lot of you are as well. So Friday, Thursday we get in. Friday morning, we're going to go to the convention center. I wasn't planning on playing in any events, but my wife was working on her cosplay outfit, and I could tell it was going to take a while. So I said in the team chat, hey, does anybody want to go play teams with me? TC and George said they weren't there quite yet, but that if they made it in time, they would be down to be in teams with me. So I quickly went, and I realized that it was not a quick travel to the convention center like I expected. First, you have to go through the casino because all of these hotels on the strip have a casino on the ground floor. You have to go through the casino and find where to go for the monorail, which is no easy feat. Ended up having to ask somebody. And then when you find the monorail, you take the monorail, and then you have to go down like a series of 3 or 4 excavators. Then you have to walk across this long parking lot because it didn't send you to the West Convention Center. It sent you to the North and South. And then you had to go down another escalator. And then there was like a Tesla tunnel system. I've never seen anything like this. Was blown away by it. But there's like this underground tunnel system where all of these Teslas were picking everybody up and taking them to the other side of the convention center. I'm a little claustrophobic, so these tunnels were not so great for me. I asked the driver, hey, is this self-driving itself, or are you driving? He said he was driving, which actually did not make me feel better. I was kind of hoping that he just got onto this track and the tunnel system controlled the car and took you through it. Then you had to go through this massive line to get inside the convention. And then once you were in the convention, you had to go through another line to get your convention badge. I was not expecting all of this. I left with only 30 minutes to spare. By the time I actually got there, there was this huge line, but Teams was starting in 10 minutes. So I felt like I had no choice. I just skipped the line. I skipped the line and then jumped over the little barrier and went through the security metal detector thing. One person yelled at me, hey, you got to go to the back of the line. But, nobody did anything about it. So I got in. It was either that or miss Teams, right? It was either skip the line or miss Teams. So I skipped the line, got in. I got to Teams right before it was going to start, and George and TC were not there yet. So I messaged George and TC, and they say, we're still looking for a parking spot. Ultimately, Teams goes ahead and starts at, I think, like 12:30. It's 12:35. We're about to get an automatic game loss. And then George shows up and says TC's still coming, but he's here. So TC gets a loss. for his side of the team. But if George and I both win, then the team still wins. I was playing Jin. George was playing his Death Younger list, and then TC, instead of playing his Death Younger, was on his Byakko list that he had done really, really well with during the webcam regional and the Wish tournament. So this was the team. TC didn't make it for round one, but George and I both won. I played a Mina 2 player. And then in round 2, I lost, but TC and George won, and they carried me. I lost against someone who I actually ended up playing in the major regional. I lost when they were playing Wolfwood. And then they carried me, and then in round 3, we all won. So we went undefeated, and we got some extra packs and some extra promos, which was nice. We're starting off with a win here. Now, I lost all 3 dice rolls for teams, and my deck really just wasn't feeling that great. Even though I went 2-1, it wasn't a comfortable 2-1. It was kind of like oh my gosh, how did I win those? I was really expecting to lose. And I know 2-1 when you lose all your dice rolls is still quite good, but it still was enough to kind of send me in like a mini panic where it was like, okay, I brought my Amajiki deck with me. Should I just switch to Amajiki right now? I can buy the cards I need for a sideboard from Rochester, and maybe I just make the switch. So all day Friday, I was going between Jin and Amajiki. After that, I hung out with my wife, who showed up to the convention. And here she is. Here, I put normal Shayla, and then Shayla cosplayed as Charlie with the character here. So, by the way, the convention was incredible. There were tons of people and very, very elaborate cosplays. It was, there was tons of really cool merchandise to pick up. The convention was well worth the $80 that you had to pay to get in. After that, I decided to stick with Jin, but I made deck changes. So I took my 75 card Jin and made it 70 cards. I took out 1 copy of Dimensional Sphere, 1 copy of Shards of Winter. I took the Icy Blade from the main board to the sideboard. I took the Citywide Crisis from the main to the side. I added a Dimensional Sphere to the side. And then I took out Idlework. I took out Adorable Telepath. While those cards sometimes were very, very good, I just had to say, okay, they're not quite consistent enough. Most of the time, I would rather see another Red Right's the Coolest or another Practical Studies, another Endless Loathing. So I took Endless Loathing to 3, and I took Practical Studies and Red Right's the Coolest to 4. These were absolutely the correct changes. Felt much, much better during the major regional with this. Practical Studies so often was the MVP of the deck, simply for the deadlock enhance of, hey, I get to seal a rival defensive piece. If I can just seal that Invincible Body, seal that Keiko's Aid, then I know that I can get a lethal attack string off right now. Saturday morning, I was feeling much, much better. I went on a morning walk, just took like a little hour-long walk along the strip. Got to get some sunlight and some dopamine flowing through my body. Came back in, I sat down at an Ultimate Texas Hold'em table, played like a $5 minimum Ultimate table, and sat down with $100, ended up walking away with $200, ready to go to the convention. Feeling much, much better, feeling lucky. It's like, hey, this is my kind of day. I double my money here pretty quick in the casino, and now I'm ready to go and top 8 the major regional. Getting to the major regional, Patrick and I got there 45 minutes beforehand, no issue. But the rest of the team was a different story. Once again, TC, George, Christos, Carson, and James were all running late to the event. They had all booked an Airbnb together, like a team Airbnb. Patrick and I stayed at Harrah's because we came with our significant others. In St. Louis, I'll go and join the team and do a big team Airbnb. So they were all carpooling together and running late again. The Rochester group was running the event pretty strict to their credit, as they should be. The event was super, super well run and was very punctual. So I was told if they're not here by 12:30, then that's a round 1 loss. And then it's like 12:20, Carson shows up panting, and I'm like, where are the others? It's like, they're still in the Tesla tunnels. I just skipped the tunnels and sprinted all the way here. I'm texting the team. I can go and get my messages. I'm like, guys, you need to run. You need to skip the line, social etiquette be damned, skip the line, run in, full sprint, Don't worry about what others think about you. You need to get here. I don't want half of our competitive team starting off with a round loss because we couldn't get there on time. Ends up, everybody runs in, and they're there at like 12:28, 12:29. The last one to show up is James, who showed up at 12:30, seconds before he would have gotten a game loss. Like seconds before. So now everybody is like panting and out of breath. Round one starts, and you have to play this major regional, and you have to just like try and gain your breath over the course of the round. But there was no time to prepare mentally for the regional for much of the team. It was just straight into it, which ends up being funny because Christos and George, who both got in at like 12:28, end up topping the event, and James, who got in seconds beforehand, was on a winning in to top the event. So if they hadn't made it in time, your top 8 could have looked very, very different. But luckily, they all ran and got there right before we started. My performance in the regional was not great. I went 4 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw. In round 1, I played a mirror match against another Jin who was basically on my same deck with maybe like 5 to 10 cards different. In round 2, I played Mirko, who sideboarded into Inasa. I took that round as well, so I start off 2-0. In round 3, I play Younger, and my deck is built to beat Younger. I was very, very happy when I saw that my round 3 opponent was on Younger, but I made a crucial misplay in game 1. Game 1 took about 40 minutes, 30 or 40 minutes, and I made a crucial misplay. There was a time where I had to choose a card from my hand to intentionally discard. I don't know if it was a Botan's coaching or if I was just discarding to fail a block. I can't remember what exactly the scenario was. I just know that I purposely discarded a mid block because I was expecting another high attack and that I wanted to keep cards in my hand for the backswing, and then a Twisting Azure came out. In my mind, I had written off the possibility of a Twisting Azure because the Youngers always start with Twisting Azure. Right, if you draw the Twisting Azure, you're going to start with those. But I hadn't considered that they drew into the Twisting Azure off of their Mop Strikes because they had played quite a bit. I think they played 3 Mop Strikes. I know I canceled the first one, as Jin will always do. That is the best thing to cancel because it forces them to discard a card and then they don't get to draw 2 cards. But they followed up with like two more Mop Strikes, just lots of things that drew cards. I discounted the possibility of another mid attack coming, and I discarded my mid block, and then they played a Twisting Azure, and a half block I still would have died. So we had to go to game 2. I won game 2. We just didn't have time for a game 3. And that misplay ended up setting me back big time because then in round 4, I play Amajiki, and I'm playing against Barlow. Barlow and I had practiced a lot together before this event. I knew that I had a very, very bad Amajiki matchup. My plan with Void Jin was simply dodge Amajiki. If I play 4 Youngers, then in my mind, I'm guaranteed to top cut. But if I run into Amajikis, then I'm probably not going to top cut. It wasn't an unwinnable matchup for me, but Armor of the Wolf is very, very hard for Jin to deal with. I can cancel like an EX3 or a powerful 3, but I'm not playing enough resets in the main board. I can bring in cards like Red Counter, but Incredible Display can stop Red Counter. I can bring in an extra Genkai's Guidance, but again, Incredible Display can cancel the Genkai's Guidance. Void Jin is just weak to Armor of the Wolf Amajiki, and Barlow ends up 2-0ing me fairly comfortably, and now I'm 2-1-1. I'm thinking I have to win out if I want to make top cuts. Then I go up against the Kami Utsushimi list, and the player was the same player that I played in teams, the player that beat me with their Wolfwood, and the Kami deck actually wasn't too different from Wolfwood, but I ended up taking it. And then in the next round, I play another Amajiki. This time it's Nate from Unfun Stuff, and he also pretty easily 2-0s me. And then in the last round, I play a younger Toguro and took total control of the game and won those games. So that was how my regional went. I ended up in 22nd place. It was still good for a top 32 finish, but in all honesty, to me, 4-2-1 is not an acceptable record for how much preparation I did for this event. I would be lying if I said I was anything other than massively disappointed with my performance. I went in with the expectation that I was going to win the event, and to not even get close to top 8 was pretty crushing to me. It wasn't like embarrassing. Like 4-2-1 isn't an embarrassing record. It's not like I went 1 win, 5 losses, 1 draw, or something like that. Still good for top 32. That's still 8 championship points. So I'm not like hanging my head about it, but it wasn't anything that I'm like super proud of. I am proud of all the work that I put in, and I do think that if I had dodged Amajikis, that I make top cuts. If these 2 Amajikis right here are actually youngers, then I feel very, very confident that I would have made top cuts. But 2 out of 7 of my rounds were the matchup that I really, really didn't want to see. I lost 6 out of 7 dice rolls. Not a big deal, but going second, it's harder. You're fighting an uphill battle. If you win going second, then your opponent gets to go first the next game as well, and then you have to win another game going second. So it is fighting an uphill battle. I'm not super embarrassed by my performance, but I'm not happy with how I did. I am happy with how the team finished. George, this is for Swiss, by the way, not for the entire event, but for Swiss. George ended up getting first place with his Death Younger. Christos got third place. James got 16th place with Jin. My brother Patrick got 20th place with Air Mirio. I got 22nd, and TC got 30th with his younger Toguro deck. Then afterwards, we went out as a team, grabbed some sushi time, had some all-you-can-eat sushi. We had this hot pot thing where you could make your own meats and order all the rolls that you wanted. I ate entirely too much. By this time, it's midnight, but my night's not done. I go to Horseshoe Casino, to the poker room, and I played Texas Hold'em from midnight to about 5 in the morning, and sorry guys, my voice, and I just got absolutely no sleep that night, but I had a blast playing Texas Hold'em. I actually have a lot of funny stories from that, but that's not meant for this video. The next day, I don't wake up until noon. I don't go to the convention, but I'm watching it on my phone. I see that George is on stream against Kevin Broberg. Game 1, Kevin wins. George just couldn't find gas on his turn. He had Kevin all the way down to 4 health. Kevin ends up getting the win. Game 2, George sides in his 4 gory stabs, and those gory stabs enable George to take total control of the game. George is playing this defensive Death Younger list. He's very comfortable building to 20 foundations, as you can see in this picture. This is a very George-esque looking stage where we just have a million foundations down here. Death Younger is adding 10 damage to everything. Some ways to power through big stages late game that George has is the Deadlock of Vile Seizing. Number 1, he gets Ore Strike to discard your hand. He gets True 100% to give it massive amounts of speed and damage. But the gory stabs enable George to totally take control of this game. Amajiki just never got to have momentum. That was a genius sideboard on George's side, but Kevin was able to play really, really good defense. And because of that, George was about to mill himself out, miscounted his deck. He played some foundations and then an attack so that he could chew through his deck and then get some attacks back into his deck, because Kevin was also playing Deception Dagger and removing George's attacks at a pretty good clip. But he miscounted and he checked a Vile Seizing. Had George drawn that Vile Seizing, he would have won on that string. But Kevin didn't just let George mill out. Kevin also tried to then play this long attack string that failed, and then George got to take it on the backswing. They go to game 3. They had taken 10 minutes shuffling, 10 and a half minutes I counted, shuffling between games 1 and game 2. And then it ended up going into overtime with the timed top cuts, which meant whoever had done the most damage or something wins. George would have taken it if his Mop Strike had hit a high block, but it didn't. It hit Kevin's low block. Kevin ends up taking it, and George falls. Very, very entertaining round to watch, by the way. If you didn't go and watch it, highly encourage you to go back. A lot of high-level play from both Kevin and George. And while they took a long time shuffling between games 1 and games 2, both games were moving really, really fast. Both players really understood their decks, and there was at no point did it feel like they were slow playing each other. Sometimes you can get these top cut matches where people are taking forever to make choices. I know because I'm one of those people that takes a long time thinking about decisions, but this match was not that. Christos fell in large part because of judge damage. Remember how everybody was running really late? Well, part of that was because they were taking their deck lists from UVS Ultra and putting them on the UGN. You have to submit your deck list that way. And Christos was doing his sideboard in the car on the way to the convention center. And then After he ID'd with Tim in round 7, because they were guaranteed top cuts, one of the judges came. This is Saturday evening. One of the judges came and deck checked Christos that night. Typically, you don't get deck checked until Sunday before top cuts, but they just randomly deck checked him after Swiss rounds and found that one card in his sideboard was different than the sideboard that he had made in the car on the way to the event. Because of that, Christos was given a game 1 loss, and then his opponent was allowed to sideboard going into game 2, but Christos was not allowed to sideboard. Basically, the deck was massively stacked against Christos, and he fell. Maybe he would have lost anyway. We'll just never know. But it really, really sucks to go out on judge damage like that. And I'm not faulting the judges for that either. Like, it's kind of odd to be deck checked on Saturday, but I don't see a reason why it shouldn't happen, especially with all the cheating scandals that have happened recently. It's just kind of a bummer. That one card sideboard difference ends up meaning an automatic loss in top 8. But I fully understand it. George and Christos fall both fall in top 8, and the team is out for top 4. Ultimately, Tim Keefe ended up winning on Order Endeavor 3. And what I love so much about this is that he won on double Walk the Dog. This is the attack that I got to reveal from Rinku's kit. I said it when I revealed it. I said, this is like a top 3 attack in the game. This is nutty. 6 low 6, basically on a 4 diff, draw 1, stun 1, powerful 3, has everything you want. Endeavor is going to make this an 8 low 9 with powerful 3, and it was, its power was on full display. Double Walk the Dog, ends up taking the event. Tim Keefe wins. Very, very well deserved. One of the top, I'd say Tim is one of the top 5 players in the game. I don't even think that's a question, to be honest. So very, very well-deserved victory for Tim there. Wins it over Mimic. There were 0 youngers in top 4. All 3 of the youngers that made top 8 lost in top 8. So top 4, I think, was Byakko, Mimic, Endeavor 3, something else that I can't remember. But I'll be making a video where I do reviews of the deck lists. So I'll show it later. Amajiki. Yeah, we had Amajiki, Endeavor 3, Mimic, and then Byakko in our top 4. This was Tim's list, by the way. Tim has always been a big fan of Absorbed Energy Spirit Strike, and he gets to use it really well here in Endeavor. We see like Psychic Spirit Glass making an appearance. Dr. Ichigaki, that was a card that I was pretty low on. And then Tim actually I gave it like a C grade when it was first revealed, and Tim commented on my post on Twitter and said, I would not give this card a C. This is actually very, very good. Universal Cancel can come in handy big time. So here we see 2 copies of it in Tim's deck here. And this was the list that won. Order Endeavor 3 took down Worlds. Order Endeavor 3 takes down the first major regional in the US. So who's to say younger is the problem? Maybe the problem is Endeavor 3, and it just has been all along. It's just been flying under the radar because not many people are playing Order Endeavor 3 at the moment. Sunday night, after that, we did dinner with Patrick and his girlfriend, and then we all went out to Ka, a Circus Soleil show. Ka was incredible. Although I have to say, I've already seen Mystere, I've already seen O, and then we saw the Disney World Circus Soleil show. So I was no newcomer to Circus Soleil. Ka was quite different in the sense that it was telling this broader story, and the stage was moving around. There's one point where the stage is like completely vertical, and the actor like doing this like fight scene completely vertical. It was a very, very neat show. If you ever go in Vegas, I highly, highly encourage you to go to a Circus Soleil show. They are worth every penny. Some of the most jaw-dropping stuff you will ever see. Then on Monday, we had a 5:15 a.m. flight out of there. Stayed up until like midnight this night, so I just got absolutely zero sleep. And I'm just now recovering. In all honesty, it's been like 3 days since I've been home. But I'm just recovering because I stayed up that one night until 5 a.m. in the morning. And then the next day, we have a 5:15 a.m. flight out of there. So all this lack of sleep, I maybe slept 12 hours total during our whole stay in Vegas. Left me very, very tired this week. But next stop, St. Louis, July 13th. I'm going to avenge my performance here in Vegas, and I'm going to get top cuts in St. Louis. I think St. Louis is going to be a much bigger event in Vegas. At least that's the sense that I'm getting from everybody. I know of a lot more people traveling to St. Louis. I suspect this will at least be a 200, 300 person major regional. Vegas still had a very respectable 107 players, but not nearly as big as I thought it could have been if it had been marketed more, maybe not at a convention that cost $80 to go to, maybe in a little easier of a location for people to travel to. All of these things, though, St. Louis is going to be a much bigger event, and I'm hoping to make top cuts in St. Louis and not have a disappointing finish there. Let's look back at my top 50. That was the Vegas trip in a nutshell, but let's look back at the top 50 coming into this. Now, I had made my top 50 tier list before Critical Role had come out, and so Mimic was down here in the frequent top cup category, but we've already seen that Knott's Flask has made this character much, much better. So I think Mimic would be up here in this regional contenders, maybe even regional champions, with the addition of Knott's Flask. And you'll also notice that I don't have any Critical Role characters in my top 50. I think Jester and maybe Vexalia would be down at the local champions level. I think I did pretty well, though. Like, the 6 people that I said realistically are going to win major regionals, Younger, Endeavor 3, Mirio as your like 6-hand size kind of aggro characters, Overhaul and Jin as your like mid-range 6-hand size characters, and then Amajiki as the best 7-hander of the bunch. I think I was pretty dang accurate with my top 6. The only one that I missed that actually won a major regional was Asui 3. And I think that's more to do with the skill level of Tam than the actual strength of the character. I think that was a win much more so than Tam Cardwell won that event, not necessarily Asui 3. Although Asui 3 is a pretty solid counter to Younger Toguro himself, and that also helps her. Let's look down here. Mina 2, I had too low. Mina 2 should have been up here. Kurama, I probably had too high. Elder and Shigaraki, I just don't think anybody was playing these 7-handers. Same thing with Edgeshot. Hawks, Wolfwood, Recovery Girl. I just don't know if a lot of people were playing these. Everybody was piling so much into Younger, Amajiki, Mirio, and the like that there wasn't really a lot of room left over. We saw a lot of players pile into Toga 3, and Toga 3 never did anything throughout the competitive season. I just think Toga 3 in the end gets outraced by characters like Mirio and Younger in terms of damage output, and you would just rather be one of them over Toga 3 in the end. Although I think she is going to get better with Girl Power and that, that Tokoyami attack that's coming out, I think is going to be very, very good in Toga 3. We'll see if it helps her more than Amajiki, or if people just continue playing Amajiki because he's just hands down the best chaos momentum character at the moment. So I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy with how I did looking back on it. I think I had the top 6 right. If I was re-ranking the top 6, I don't think I would change anything. I think Jin is right up there. We had 4 Jins at the Las Vegas Major Regional. I finished 22nd. James finished 16th, and Andrew Porat also finished top 16, I believe, with Void Jin. Him and James were both on win-and-ends. So I think 2 of the top 16 was Void Jin. I don't think anybody internationally was really on Jin compared to the US. So I think Jin is very much in the top 6 right now, characters in the game. I'm pretty proud of how I did on this tier list. I'll be making another tier list for Girl Power here in just a couple weeks. Currently, state of the game wise, everybody's of course mad at Younger. We had the Oceania Regional was Younger versus Younger finals. The UK Regional was Younger versus Younger finals. And then there was 3 Younger in the top 8 in the US. Even though none made it to the top 4, almost having half of your top cuts be a single character, everybody's mad at Younger, and I don't really disagree with them. This is a character that obviously needs to be errated. It was pretty obvious the moment he was printed. I don't think he needs to be hit with a huge errata. I've already made a whole video about my top 10 personal erratas that I would like to see happen to this character. Something needs to happen. I assume that it is come Tuesday. If you're watching this after next Tuesday, we've probably already had the Younger errata come out. I would be shocked if no errata happened. All that said, I don't think this character is as bad as people have been saying. He has some very, very clear weaknesses. I mean, as Jin, I felt like I had a 90% win rate versus this character. at least in my practice. It was like I just couldn't lose to one of our team's youngers in team practices. It was just auto wins for me. I did draw with the 1 in the major regional. I went 1-0-1 against Younger when it counted, but he's got some very clear flaws that can be exploited. I was going to make a whole video about how to beat him. I had a whole presentation ready. I just never ended up making it because I was playing the game so much instead of making content before the major regional. But I think he's being kind of overblown how good he is. He curb stomps 80% of the characters in the game, and he curb stomps beginners to the game. If you're a highly skilled player who understands Younger and understands how to beat him, you're going to be okay. He's not like so good that he's just destroying everybody in his path. He's just kind of a locals, feels bad. He's easy to pilot, so a lot of people pile into him. And then he's just going to auto win against 80% of the characters in the game. So he does need to be errated. I hope they don't absolutely demolish the character with their errata. It's just going to take something pretty small, and then he's fixed. Now, let's see. In the past, they've always taken sledgehammers to characters that have been errated. You know, we don't see any Ojiro 2s running around anymore, Kirishima 2s. They got hit with a sledgehammer. Hopefully, this is done a little more tactfully when they errata Younger. But Younger is covering up a bigger issue here. And I'm not sure issue is the word for it because it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a thing. The reality is that Yu Yu Hakusho has changed our game at a fundamental level. Yu Yu Hakusho pushed the power level of this game in a major way. Cards like Armor of the Wolf, Battle Aura Release, Walk the Dog, Ice Sword Execution, Trace Eyes, these are all super, super powerful cards. I don't think we've ever had an easier dunk move than Armor of the Wolf. Battle Aura Release is 12 stats on a 4 diff that draws a card. Ice Sword Execution says you commit everything. Oh, by the way, it could be 15 stats on a 5 diff. Walk the Dog is like 12 stats base on a 4 diff plus stun 1 plus powerful 3 plus draw. These are insane. And then we got insane defensive cards as well. Referee Jury, Genkai's Guidance, Cape of No Return, Weapon Clash. Yu Yu Hakusho pushed this game forward in a massive way, power level wise, both on offense and on defense. And Yu Yu Hakusho gave us a million ways to draw. The clear one right now is Mop Strike. If you're on Mop Strike symbols, you're just running 4 of this card. It says discard 1, draw 2. But we got all these 1/5s foundations, like Fearsome Transformations, Settling Old Debts, Final Test to flip and draw. We got actions like Dark Tournament Looms to draw and get a momentum to our hand. Botan's Coaching is a $20 zero diff at the moment. 45% power, Rapid Speed Slash. Yu Yu Hakusho just gave us a ton of ways to draw. Now, this isn't super new. We've seen a lot of ways to draw in the past. Sorry, guys, someone's doing their lawn work, so this might show up on the audio a little bit. But it's very, very loud out there. I hope it's not too bad. But someone's mowing their lawn, and this room my recording room is right on the edge of our house, facing our front yard. But Yu Yu Hakusho pushed the power level of our game forward in a huge way, gave us a lot of ways to easily draw, and that's just the current state of the game. And so it's odd that we have Girl Power coming out soon, and Girl Power, no doubt, is more along the lines of Crimson Rampage, Heroes Clash, League of Villains. Right? We've had 3 sets in a row now, Undaunted Raid, Jetburn, Yu Yu Hakusho, that have all pushed the game forward in a huge way. And Girl Power is not going to do that. We got some very, very good cards coming in Girl Power. It's definitely a set worth buying. But I don't think we're having a lot of characters in Girl Power come out that are going to be defining the meta. I think the meta is going to continue to be defined by Jetburn 6-handers, Overhaul, Mirio, and Yu Yu Hakusho characters. I don't think anything's really going to change there. We're going to get some good cards to play around with, but it's going to be like Crimson Rampage. Right? When Crimson Rampage came out, Set 1 characters still dominated the meta, but you got some new cards, right? You had like Excited for Blood, Struggling with Studies, Back Alley Haymaker. You had some cards come in that shook things up a little bit. Same with Heroes Clash. We didn't get any major characters added to the meta, but we got some cool cards. We got like Snack Time, One with Nature. Heck, these were banned. Twisting Azure, Inferno. Had some very, very strong stuff come out. So Girl Power, I think, is more in the line with those sets, where we've got some strong cards, but it's not going to be like meta defining like Yu Yu Hakusho was. And then we have Godzilla coming out, and we just got to look at those cards yesterday, and those look incredible. My theory is that whoever designed Godzilla was the same designer as Yu Yu Hakusho, because it really pushes the power level of this game up, moves things forward. And that's not necessarily a bad or a good thing. It's just a thing. And that is the state of the game, is that Yu Yu Hakusho came in and really changed how we play. We have these massive dunks and we have these massive anti-dunks, and everybody's drawing cards. It's not weird if you start your turn with 6 cards in hand and end your turn with 10 cards in hand. You were just drawing that much over your attack string. Is that a good thing? I don't know, but it's a thing. And this is the current state of the game heading into Girl Power. With all that said, that is going to do it for me. That was me and Jin's Las Vegas experience. 4-2-1, not too bad, not good enough. The team made up 25% of top cuts, though. Big congratulations to George and Christos for leading the way for the team. And a final big congratulations to Tim Keefe for taking down Las Vegas with Order Endeavor 3.